Welcome, and thank you for joining this module. This is Module F1, Introduction to Lean and Continuous Improvement, the very first step in the Qlause Continuous Improvement Program. In this module, we'll build a shared language for improvement, what lean actually means, how to tell valuable work apart from waste, and the simple daily habits that turn good intentions into real, lasting change. You don't need any background in manufacturing or quality to follow along. This module is designed for everyone, from the shop floor to the front office, because continuous improvement only works when every single person is part of it. So get comfortable, and let's begin. Let's be clear about what you'll walk away with. By the end of this module, you'll be able to explain, in your own words, what lean and continuous improvement actually mean. No jargon required. You'll be able to look at any task and tell the difference between work that adds value and work that's really just waste. You'll know the 5 principles of lean and the simple 4-step cycle, called PDCA, that every improvement follows. You'll understand why modern improvement is about much more than tools. It's about culture, daily habits, and using technology well. And most importantly, you'll understand your own part in all of this. This is a foundation module for everyone. There's nothing you need to know beforehand, and it leads straight into Module F2, where we go deeper on the 8 wastes. Let's start with the big picture. Why this matters, and why it matters now. Before we get into any tools or techniques, it's worth understanding the simple idea at the heart of everything, and the pressures that make it more important today than ever before. Here's a question to hold in your mind as we go. Think about your own work for a moment, and the parts of your day that feel like effort but never quite seem to move things forward. By the end of the next few minutes, you'll have a name for a lot of that, and the beginnings of a way to deal with it. Improvement starts with simply seeing your work more clearly than you did yesterday. So what is continuous improvement? At its simplest, it's the ongoing effort by everyone, every day, to make our work a little bit better, safer, easier, faster, with fewer defects and less waste. Notice the words everyone and every day. This isn't something that happens once a year when a consultant visits. It's a steady drumbeat of small changes. It rests on 2 beliefs. The first is that the people who actually do the work know best how to improve it, and that's probably you. The second is that lots of small improvements added together over time beat the occasional big project. Lean is simply the most widely used system for doing this. It was born in car manufacturing, but today you'll find it in hospitals reducing waiting times, in banks speeding up loans, and in software teams shipping better products. Anywhere people want to deliver more value with less effort, you'll find lean. And here's the key mindset on the right of your screen. Better beats best. Don't wait for the perfect solution. A 1% improvement made every week makes a process roughly twice as good within a year. Continuous improvement is a habit, not a project. It helps to know where this comes from, because lean wasn't dreamed up in a boardroom. It grew on the factory floor over more than a century, each step a practical answer to a real problem. It starts in the 1890s with a man named Sakichi Toyota, who built a weaving loom that stopped itself automatically whenever a thread broke. That one idea, building quality into the process rather than inspecting for defects at the end, is still one of the most powerful ideas in lean. Fast forward to the 1950s, and the Toyota Motor Company, short on cash and space after the war, develops what becomes the Toyota production system. Its 2 pillars are just in time, making only what's needed, when it's needed, and a deep respect for the people doing the work. In 1990, a group of researchers studying Toyota gave this approach a name the world now uses, lean, in a famous book called The Machine That Changed the World. And today, we've reached what people call Lean 4.0, where live data from sensors and analytics is layered on top of that same waste-removing discipline. The tools have changed across the decades. The goal never has. Deliver more value with less waste by trusting the people closest to the work. So why the urgency now? 3 pressures, and you'll recognize all of them. First, cost. The price of materials, energy, and labor keeps climbing. You can't always pass that on to customers, and you should never cut corners on safety or quality to absorb it. Removing waste is the third option. It protects your margin from the inside. Second, speed and quality together. Customers today expect things faster than ever, and they expect 0 defects while they're at it. The only sustainable way to give them both is to make work flow smoothly and to build quality in at every step, rather than catching problems at the end. Third, and maybe most important, people. Experienced, skilled people are harder to find and harder to keep than they used to be. A workplace that genuinely listens to people's ideas and lets them improve their own work is a workplace people want to stay in. Continuous improvement isn't a nice-to-have anymore. It's how organizations stay competitive and how they hold on to good people. Before we go further, let's lock in the mindset, because it's different from how many of us were taught to think about change. We tend to imagine improvement as a big leap, a new machine, a major project, a reorganization. Lean says the opposite. Real, lasting improvement is 1,000 small steps taken by everyone as part of the normal working day. 3 words capture it. Small. A tiny change you can try today beats a perfect plan you never get around to starting. Everyone. Every single person sees waste that others walk straight past, which is why the best ideas come from the work itself, not from above. And every day. Improvement isn't a separate project that competes with your real job. It becomes part of your real job, a habit woven into the daily routine. Hold on to those 3 words. Small, everyone, every day. Everything else in this module is just a way of putting them into practice. One last thought before we move on. People sometimes worry that small steps means slow progress. It's actually the opposite. A single big project might take a year and touch one area. 1,000 small improvements made by everybody touch every area at once and never stop. That's why the small, everyday approach beats the occasional grand gesture. It compounds, and it includes everyone. Now let's build the foundation. Everything in Lean stands on one question and one distinction. What does the customer truly value, and what is simply waste? Get this right, and the rest follows naturally. We'll define value, learn to see the 8 wastes, and walk through the 5 principles that tie it all together. As we go through this section, keep your own job in mind, because the whole point is to apply it. We'll define value, then learn to see waste, then tie it together with 5 principles. None of it is abstract. By the end, you should be able to look at a task you do every day and sort it into value and waste in your head. That single skill is the foundation everything else is built on. The foundation of Lean is the idea of value, and the crucial part is that value is defined by the customer, not by us. Value is anything the customer is willing to pay for. It's not what's easiest for us to do, and it's not the way we've always done it. It's what the customer actually wants. To make this practical, there are 3 simple tests shown on the right. A step in your work adds value only if all 3 are true. 1. Does it physically change the product or service in the way the customer wants? 2. Would the customer happily pay for it if they could see it? And 3. Is it done right the first time? Because doing it twice is not something anyone wants to pay for. If a step passes all 3 tests, it's value adding. Protect it. If it fails, it falls into one of 2 buckets. Some of it is pure waste, which we attack directly. The rest is what we call necessary but non-value adding. Things like a safety inspection or a required document that the customer wouldn't pay for, but that we genuinely need today. We don't pretend that work away, but we do treat it as a target to reduce over time. Keep those 3 tests in your head. We'll use them constantly. Let's put value and waste side by side, because once you can see the 2 kinds of work, you can't unsee them. On the left is value-adding work. It changes the product the way the customer wants. It's done right the first time, and it's something the customer would happily pay for. A clear example, welding a seat frame to specification. That's exactly what the customer is buying. On the right is waste. The Japanese word is muda. Waste is anything the customer would not want to pay for. It includes the obvious culprits: waiting, rework, excess movement, doing more than is needed. And it also includes that necessary but non-value work we just mentioned, which we minimize wherever we can. The example here is an operator walking across the shop to find a missing tool. The customer gets nothing from that walk. It adds time and effort and no value. Here's the eye-opening part, and we'll see it on the next slide. In a typical operation, far more of the day is spent on the right-hand side than the left. That's not a criticism of anyone, it's simply the opportunity. Learning to see waste is the first real skill of continuous improvement. Let's make this real by following a single part, a seat frame, all the way through the line, and judging each step with our 3 value tests. First, it waits in stores. The customer wouldn't pay for waiting, so that's non-value. Then it's moved to the welding cell. Movement the customer doesn't value, so non-value again. Then it's welded to specification. That changes the product the customer's way. That's value adding. After welding, it waits for quality control. More waiting, non-value. Then it's inspected. Now, inspection is interesting. The customer wouldn't pay for it directly, but right now we need it, so we call it necessary. Then a seam has to be reworked because of a small defect. Rework is pure waste. The customer would never pay to have something done twice. Then it's packed, which is necessary, and finally shipped, which the customer does value. Add it up. Out of 8 steps, only 2 genuinely add value. The other 6 are waiting, moving, inspecting, and reworking. The part spends the large majority of its time adding no value at all. Now here's the important tone. This is not a sign that anyone is doing a bad job. This pattern is completely normal in almost every operation on Earth. The reason we map it is that this is exactly where the opportunity lives. Every one of those non-value steps is a candidate for improvement. To make waste easier to spot, Lean groups it into 8 types, and there's a handy word to remember them all: downtime. Each letter is one waste. D is for defects. Anything scrapped, reworked, or returned under warranty, because a defect means doing the work more than once. O is overproduction, making more than the customer needs, or making it sooner than needed. This is often called the worst waste because it hides all the others. W is waiting. People or parts standing idle, waiting for a machine, a signal, or a decision. N is non-used talent, and we'll come back to this one. T is transport, unnecessary movement of materials around the site. I is inventory, excess stock and work in progress sitting around, tying up cash and space. M is motion, the extra walking, reaching, and searching that people do, like that walk to find a missing tool. And E is extra processing, doing more than the customer actually needs, like polishing a surface no one will ever see. Now, back to N, non-used talent. The first 7 wastes have been around for decades. The 8th, failing to use people's ideas, skills, and creativity, was added later, and it's arguably the most important of all, because wasting human potential is the one waste that prevents you from fixing the other 7. We'll go deep on all 8 in the next module, F2. Now let's try it together. Read the scene on the left, or listen as I describe it, and see how many wastes you can spot before I reveal them. An operator finishes a batch of parts. She then walks all the way to the far store to fetch more material. When she gets there, the parts are missing, so she has to wait while someone tracks them down. Meanwhile, back at her station, her machine is sitting idle, doing nothing. And the finished boxes she already made are piling up next to the machine because the next cell down the line isn't ready to take them yet. Take a second. How many wastes? There are at least 4. First, motion. That long walk to the far store, back and forth, adds nothing. Second, waiting. She's standing idle while the missing parts are found, and so is her machine. Third, inventory. Those finished boxes piling up are stock with nowhere to go, tying up space and cash. And fourth, overproduction. She's made more than the next cell can actually use right now, which is what created that pile in the first place. One short, ordinary scene, 4 different wastes. This is the skill we're building. Not blaming the operator. None of this is her fault. But learning to see the waste in the way the work is organized so we can fix it. Everything we've covered comes together in the 5 principles of Lean. Think of them as a loop you can run on any process, anywhere. Principle 1. Value. Start by defining value through the customer's eyes. Exactly what we practiced. What are they really paying for? Principle 2. The value stream. Map every step a product or service takes, from start to finish, and mark which steps add value and which don't, just like we did with the seat frame. Principle 3. Flow. Take those value-adding steps and make them flow smoothly, without stops, cues, or rework getting in the way. Principle 4. Pull. This is a subtle but powerful one. Instead of pushing out as much as you can, you make only what the next step actually needs, exactly when it needs it. That single change eliminates overproduction and the inventory that comes with it. And Principle 5. Perfection. You never finish. You run the loop again and again, finding the next improvement, because there is always a better way. Notice that these 5 aren't a set of tools to memorize. They're a way of thinking. Value, value stream, flow, pull, perfection. Run that loop and you're doing Lean. Let's put some numbers on why this matters, because the opportunity is bigger than most people expect. These are typical teaching benchmarks from across industry, shown to give you a sense of scale, not measurements from any one site. First number. In a typical plant, as little as 5% of the total time a part spends in the building actually adds value, 5%. The other 95 is waiting, moving, and storing. Second, 8 types of waste hide in virtually every process. The downtime list we just saw, which you'll master in Module F2. Third, and this is the encouraging one, study after study finds that more than 60% of the best improvement ideas come from the people doing the work, not from managers or engineers. That's you. And fourth, the compounding effect. Improving something by just 1% a week makes it roughly twice as good within a year. None of these numbers require heroics. They just require everyone seeing waste and chipping away at it, a little at a time. That's the whole game. And let me reframe those numbers one more way, because it's easy to hear 95% waste and feel discouraged. Don't. Flip it around. It means the room to improve is enormous, and it's sitting right there in the normal course of work, waiting for someone to notice it. You don't need a big budget or a new machine to capture it. You need eyes that can see waste and the habit of chipping away at it. That's available to every single person, starting today. The tools we've covered are timeless, but how the best organizations use them has changed a lot. Modern continuous improvement is defined less by the tools themselves and more by 4 shifts. Culture comes first. Improvement becomes a daily habit. Digital technology is folded in, and people and sustainability move to the center. Let's look at each. Here's why this section matters to you personally. You might be thinking the tools we just covered sound like something for engineers, but these 4 shifts, culture, daily habits, digital, and people, are exactly what make improvement something everyone takes part in, not just specialists. As we go through them, notice how each one is really about making it easier and safer for ordinary people to improve their own work. That's the thread to follow. The first big shift is that culture now comes before the tools, and this is the single most important lesson from decades of lean. For years, organizations did the obvious thing. They bought the lean tools. They put up the boards, drew the maps, ran the events. And many of them watched it all quietly fade away within a year or two. Why? Because they skipped the foundation, which is culture. There's a well-known framework called the Shingo model, named after Shigeo Shingo, and it makes the point about as plainly as you can. Ideal results require ideal behaviors. You cannot bolt great results onto a culture of blame. Respect for people, honesty about problems, and the psychological safety to speak up when something's wrong. These come first. Think about it from your own experience. In a workplace where people get blamed when something goes wrong, what happens to the problems? They go into hiding. People cover them up. But in a workplace where it's genuinely safe to raise a problem, those same problems come to the surface and get solved. So when we talk about culture, we're not talking about the soft, fluffy stuff. Culture is the hard foundation that everything else stands on. The second shift follows naturally from the first. If improvement is going to be everyone's job, every day, it can't depend on the occasional big event. The old model was exactly that. Wait for the annual Kaizen blitz, make a burst of changes, then go quiet for another year. The modern model is different. A small, scientific routine that teams run every single day. It's built on the same loop scientists use, and it's often called the improvement kata. Kata being a word for a practiced routine. It goes like this, and you can see it on the right. First, where do we want to be? What's our target? Second, where are we now, honestly? Third, what's one small experiment we could try to close the gap? And fourth, what did we actually learn from it? Then you repeat. The genius of doing this daily is twofold. It turns improvement from something extra you have to find time for into simply how the work gets done. And every time a team runs the loop, the people in it get a little better at solving problems. You're not just fixing today's issue, you're building the problem-solving muscle of the whole organization, one small step at a time. The third shift is digital, and it's why people now talk about Lean 4.0. Classic Lean relied on people watching the process with their own eyes and writing numbers down on paper. That still works, and observation will never go out of style. But technology now lets us see waste the very moment it happens, instead of discovering it weeks later. Here's how. Inexpensive sensors stream data directly from machines, temperatures, cycle times, stoppages. Simple analytics watch that data and flag the instant something drifts outside its normal range. And increasingly, they can even predict a breakdown before it happens, so you fix the machine on your terms instead of when it fails. The clearest example, and one you'll hear a lot, is OEE, Overall Equipment Effectiveness, which is just a measure of how well a piece of equipment is actually being used. For decades, OEE was captured by hand, by someone walking around with a clipboard, and you'd see the results maybe a month later, far too late to act. Now it's captured automatically and shown on a live dashboard, so a problem is visible within minutes. The principle to remember is this: Lean provides the discipline of removing waste. Digital provides the eyes, real-time visibility, and prediction. The two together are far more powerful than either alone. The fourth and final shift is sometimes called Industry 5.0, and it puts people and the planet firmly at the center of improvement. There are three parts. First, safety and ergonomics. Modern improvement designs work so that it's safe and physically kind to do, reducing injuries and fatigue. And here's the bonus. Work that's easier on the body is almost always higher quality and more productive too, so this is never a trade-off. People are the point of the exercise, not an afterthought. Second, sustainability. It turns out that energy, raw materials, and scrap are forms of waste, exactly like the 8 we listed. So cutting them does two good things at once. It saves real money, and it protects the environment. A lean operation is naturally a greener one. Third, people working alongside technology. As new tools arrive, including collaborative robots, cobots, that work safely next to people, the goal is for technology to support people by taking on the dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks, while human judgment stays right at the center. The thread running through all four shifts is the same. Tools and technology matter, but they serve people, never the other way around. We've covered what lean is, the foundations of value and waste, and how modern improvement works. Now the most important part, your role in all of it, and what an improvement actually looks like from the first idea to a lasting change. This is where it stops being theory and becomes something you do. This is the part to really tune in for, because everything so far has been building to it. It's one thing to understand value, waste, and principles in theory. It's another to know what to actually do on Monday morning. In this section, we'll make it concrete, what your role is, how a real improvement runs from first idea to lasting change, and the simple ways improvement shows up in the working week. By the end, you'll know exactly how to start. Before we look at the how, let's clear up some common misunderstandings, because they trip a lot of people up. On the left, what continuous improvement is. It's everyone's job, every day. It's lots of small ideas coming from the floor. It's solving problems with facts rather than opinions. It's making the work safer and easier for the people doing it. And it's a way of thinking that lasts, not a phase. Now the right-hand side, which matters just as much. What it is not. It is not only for managers or engineers. If you ever hear, "That's not my job," that's the misunderstanding to correct. It is not a one-off event, and it is definitely not a disguised cost-cutting or job-cutting drive. Improvement that costs people their jobs kills the trust it depends on. It is not about blaming people when something goes wrong. We attack the process, not the person. It is not about simply working faster or harder for its own sake. That just burns people out. And it is not extra paperwork that quietly fades away once the attention moves on. If you take one thing from this slide, continuous improvement is with people, by people, for people. The moment it becomes something done to people, it stops working. So how does an actual improvement run, step by step? It follows a simple 4-step cycle called PDCA. Plan, do, check, act. It's the same scientific loop we mentioned earlier, written in 4 plain words. And once you know it, you'll see it everywhere. Plan. Understand the problem properly and set a clear target for what better looks like. Resist the urge to jump straight to a solution. Do. Try a small change, and the word small is deliberate. You want a quick, low-risk experiment, not a giant rollout you can't undo. Check. Look at what happened and compare it honestly to your target. Did it actually work? Sometimes it won't, and that's fine. A failed experiment that teaches you something is a success in disguise. And act. If it worked, lock it in. Make the new way the standard way, so the improvement sticks and doesn't quietly slide back. Then you start the loop again on the next problem. That's the whole engine. Small, fast loops beat big, slow plans every time. Plan, do, check, act. Let's watch it work on a real example. One more thing worth saying about this loop. Its real power is that it's safe. Because each experiment is small and reversible, you're never betting the farm. If an idea doesn't work, you've learned something cheaply, and you simply try the next one. That safety is what gives ordinary people the confidence to start improving without fear of getting it wrong. Let's run PDCA on a real, ordinary problem. The kind you might see any day. The problem, across the top. Operators lose time every shift hunting for the right-hand tools. Step 1. Plan. We set a clear target, ideally 0 time loss searching. And then we go and look because facts beat guesses. We watch one shift and discover each operator loses about 12 minutes a shift because the tools are stored far from the cell and aren't labeled. Now we understand the problem. Step 2. Do. We try one small, cheap, reversible experiment. A shadow board right at the cell with a marked outline for each tool so everyone can see at a glance what goes where and what's missing. We trial it on one cell for 1 week. If it doesn't work, we've lost almost nothing. Step 3. Check. We measure again. Search time drops from 12 minutes to under 2, and the operators tell us setup just feels calmer and less stressful. We've very nearly hit our target. Step 4. Act. Because it worked, we make the shadow board the standard for that cell, then roll it out to the other cells so everyone benefits. And then we turn our attention to the next problem. That's PDCA. No consultants, no big budget. A clear target, one small experiment, an honest check, and locking in what works. Now, you might be thinking, that PDCA example sounds great, but where do I even write this down? The good news is you don't need special training or fancy software to start. Most improvements begin life as something very simple, an idea card or a single sheet of paper that lean people call an A3, named simply after the size of the paper. On the right is what one looks like, filled in with our shadow board example. It has just a few boxes. The problem: tools are hard to find at the cell, and time is lost every shift. My idea: a shadow board with a marked place for each tool. Try it. 1 cell, 1 week. And the result? Search time went from 12 minutes to under 2, so we'll adopt it as the standard. That's it. The reason this little card is so powerful is that it keeps you honest. It forces you to state the actual problem before jumping to a solution, to make your idea concrete, and to record what really happened. And here's the empowering part. If you can fill in those 4 boxes, you can improve your own work. You already have everything you need to start. The card is just a way of thinking made visible. So how does all of this show up in the normal working week? In a few practical ways you'll come to recognize. Daily huddles. Short stand-up meetings at a team board, usually just a few minutes, where the team looks at how they're doing on safety, quality, delivery, and cost, and raises any issues or ideas. Idea capture. A simple, low-friction way for anyone, including you, to put forward an improvement, and importantly, to see it actually get acted on. Because nothing kills enthusiasm faster than ideas vanishing into a black hole. Problem solving. When something goes wrong, instead of a quick patch, we use PDCA to find and fix the underlying cause so it doesn't keep coming back. And Kaizen and Gemba. Kaizen means focused team improvement events, and Gemba is a Japanese word for the real place. The idea that leaders should go to where the work actually happens to see it firsthand and support the people doing it, rather than managing from a distance. But if you remember just one thing from this entire module, make it this, on the right. You are the expert on your own job. Continuous improvement works precisely because the people closest to the work are the ones who can see the waste and fix it. Your ideas are the fuel. Without them, the whole engine stops. I want to leave you with one line from Taiichi Ohno, the engineer who built the Toyota production system. He said, "Where there is no standard, there can be no improvement." It sounds simple, but it's profound. It means that before you can improve anything, you need a clear, agreed way of doing it today, a standard, so that when you make a change, you can actually tell whether things got better. Without a standard, every shift does the job differently, and you can never learn because you're never comparing like with like. So a standard isn't there to box you in. It's the starting line for every improvement. Lock in the best way you know today, then use it as the baseline to find an even better way tomorrow. That's the rhythm of continuous improvement in a single sentence. Let's see how much is landed. Here are 3 quick questions covering the main ideas. Have a go at answering each one in your head before the answer appears. That little moment of effort is what makes it stick. Don't worry, this isn't a test you can fail, and nobody's marking it. It's just a chance to check that the main ideas have landed before you finish. For each question, I'll read the options, then give you a moment to decide before the answer appears on screen. That small pause, where you commit to an answer in your own head, is genuinely what helps the learning stick, so do take it. Ready? Here we go. Question 1. Which of these adds value in the customer's eyes? Moving a part to the next cell, welding the part to specification, inspecting the part for defects, or storing the part in the warehouse? Think back to our 3 value tests. The answer is B, welding the part to specification. That's the only step that physically changes the product the way the customer wants, and the only thing they're really paying for. Moving and storing are non-value adding, and inspecting, while necessary today, is something the customer wouldn't choose to pay for. So whenever you're judging a step, ask, does this actually change the product the customer's way? If not, it's a candidate for improvement. Picture each option for a second before you choose. Which one would the customer actually open their wallet for? Question 2. In the memory word downtime, what does the letter N stand for? Is it nominal cost, non-used talent, night shift delays, or negative feedback? The answer is B, non-used talent. This is the 8th waste, the modern addition to the original 7, and it's arguably the most important of all. When an organization fails to tap into the ideas, skills, and creativity of its people, it wastes the very resource that could fix every other waste. So if you ever feel you've spotted a better way but no one's asking, that's non-used talent, and this whole program exists to put an end to it. This one's about the memory aid, and it's worth knowing cold because we'll use it constantly in the next module. And question 3. What's the correct order of the improvement cycle? Is it plan, do, check, act? Do, plan, act, check, act, plan, do, or act, do, plan, check? The answer is A, plan, do, check, act. First you plan, understand the problem and set a target. Then you do, run one small, safe experiment. Then you check, compare the result honestly against your target. And finally you act, standardize what worked and start again on the next problem. Plan, do, check, act. Keep that loop in your back pocket. It's the single most useful tool you'll take from today. If you remember only one framework from today, this is the one. So it's worth getting the order firmly fixed. Let's pull it all together into 3 things to carry with you. Number 1, value versus waste. From now on, look at any task and ask the question, does this step add value the customer would actually pay for? If the answer is no, you found waste, and waste is just an opportunity in disguise. Number 2, small and daily. Improvement isn't one heroic push. It's a daily habit, run with the plan, do, check, act cycle. Many small wins that compound over time. Number 3, and the heart of it all. Continuous improvement is everyone's job, and it runs on respect for people. You know your own job better than anyone, which is exactly why your ideas matter most. If those 3 ideas are all you remember a month from now, you'll have the foundation you need. Everything else is detail we'll build on together. So where does your journey go from here? Up next is Module F2, the 8 wastes, where we take the downtime list we previewed today and go deep, learning to spot each of the 8 wastes on real lines and start removing them. Before then, 3 small things to do, shown on screen. 1. Complete the short F2 module before your next team huddle, so you arrive ready. 2. This week, just look. Find one example of waste in your own area. You now have the eyes for it. And 3. Bring one improvement idea to your team board. It doesn't have to be big. Remember, small beats perfect. That's how this starts. Not with a grand program, but with one person noticing one thing and saying something. And that person can be you. That brings us to the end of Module F1. Thank you for giving it your time and attention. Let's finish where we started, with the 3 words that capture the whole philosophy. Small steps, every day, everyone. Continuous improvement isn't a program that happens to you. It's something you're now part of. You've got the language, you understand value and waste, you know the PDCA loop, and you know that your ideas are the fuel that makes it all work. If anything in this module raised a question, please speak to your supervisor or your site CI lead. That's exactly what they're there for. I'll see you in Module F2, where we start turning all of this into action. Until then, go and spot some waste.